health center, and like he has his sauna and all that. Like imagine just your day is you just go make people laugh, then you get to just sit and have the most in-depth conversation with people from all different works of art, whatever it is, and he killed it. Like the last it take him 15 years probably.
Yeah, I think like 08.
So 12 years. 10 years basically to like really blow up with that. I wonder what like his first, I don't remember like if he ever really talked about why he started it.
Yeah, he has. Cuz they had like Opie and Anthony. That was like one of the first like comedy. It wasn't a podcast though. It was like I don't know if it was like Sirius XM maybe, but it was like two comics doing a show, I believe. I've never like actually listened to it, but
so he did that?
Well, no, it was Opie and Anthony were two guys. Okay. It's kind of like how they do morning radio now, but it was with two comics, and that it was more of like a podcast setting where they had other comics, and then Joe. Well, then there was another. I forget the guy's name, but there's another guy that started like podcasting, and then Joe, being part of like the stand-up comedy scene in LA, like just started one, and that's why all his early stuff is with like Bill Burr, Joey Diaz, Bert Kreischer.
From the Comedy Store.
From the Comedy Store. It was all like his comedian buddies, and they just like
the Comedy Store is was it just in California that
yeah, it's like it? The Comedy Store is like one of the biggest venues for comedy in the country,
and people, that's where people get their start,
well, it's just so well known, like that. It's
like the pool. It's like a pool hall.
No, it's like
comedies?
no,
like for comedians though.
Kinda. Like have you been to the one in Appleton?
Yeah.
It's like that.
Okay.
But then instead of like just being in Appleton, like being a little like thing, they have a bigger stage, and it's like people.
You're in LA.
Yeah, you're in LA. We're like, so like Bill Burr when he's working out, like trying to get a new special going, or Chris Rock is another big one, like because they live in LA, they'll just randomly show up on like a Tuesday, be like, hey, can I get 10 minutes?
Yeah.
And they'll give them 10 minutes on stage. So like when you go there, you know you're gonna see the lineup that's scheduled, which are all killers. Like that's where Joey Diaz got started. Well, I don't know if like started, but like got big. That's where Ari Shaffir actually started, and Tony. They were guys just taking tickets at the door, and they like listening and learning, and then they started doing open mics because they'll have like open mic nights. Like Appleton has that where like anybody can sign up.
We should do one of those. We should go to one of those.
I'd like to go. I wouldn't do it.
No, not do it. I mean like go to the show and watch the show. That's really interesting though, because like Kill Tony Hinchcliffe, he has a show Kill Tony on YouTube, which is 5 years old or
no, it's
older,
10th year.
10 year. That 10-year anniversary was. If you guys are looking for like new comics to the scene, I guess.
Yeah.
Kill Tony is probably the best comedy that you're gonna get for. Like,
it's the best like live.
The show where it's
show for stand up.
Yes, I think so.
It's so funny.
So what I was going to get at is like it's cool that Tony does that, because that's kind of how he started, just listening in, learning, and then doing it. And now he has his own show devoted to that for like if like say somebody's a drummer playing in the background for the show. If somebody comes on there as a comedian and they're like, oh, and Tony's like, what's your other skill? Because of comedy, like your comedy might suck or something, because they like rip on these people, but they also give them tips on like how to get better. But really it's like a shit talking thing, and it's like to see if they're good on their feet, really. It's what it seems like. And if they have like a different skill, like playing the drums, they'll challenge the drummer who has the job now in a drum off.
Yeah, they have a live band on set that plays between people.
Yep, with live audience, all that, and definitely look that up. That shit is
Yeah, they call it a Mexican drum off. And it's if they do a drum off, and if the comedian drummer, if the crowd thinks that the comedian drummer is better than the house drummer in the band, the house drummer loses his spot, and the guy is automatically booked in this new band. He's automatically
they'll fire the other guy.
They'll fire him on the spot.
Like the one weren't they next to that strip club? Or it's right, yeah. This is in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And there's a strip club right next to the Kill Tony's set. And
well, it's at the Vulcan Gas Company. It's called.
That's what
the venue. Yeah.
Okay. And you tell. So it was the comedian that came on, the comic.
Yeah.
Didn't he say something about doing something with a midget? Like he could bench.
No, it was. So the guy came up and he looks like a big kind of bodybuilder guy, and Tony. So we should just tell the whole premise of the
yeah. I think
the
I
show.
remember the story a little bit now.
So the premise of the show is anybody can sign up, and if you sign up, you get in for free, or you can pay for like a ticket. But if you sign up, you get in for free to at least watch. But then Tony takes all those names that signed up and he pulls random names out of a bucket. And if he pulls your name, you have to do a 1 minute on stage of stand up. So you got like random jerk offs, but mostly it's comedians trying to make it. Like this is their big break if they get on and kill, because Tony's had at least 3 guys that come through, and like one of them, Hans Kim, is opening up for Joe Rogan, and William Montgomery's opened up for Joe Rogan, and Louis C.K. Like these big names. So there's incentive because Tony's gonna.
They can promote you.
And Red Band does a secret show on like Thursday nights that he'll take people out that he thinks is good and be like, hey, do you want to do 10 minutes on the secret show? Yeah, sure. So it's like.
Okay. So it's a way they're getting their foot in the door.
Yeah, it's becoming that way, like to get it. It's kind of like how they say like going on Letterman, or like back in the day, like going on Johnny Carson was a big deal.
Or
like,
the Joe Rogan bump.
Yeah, the Joe Rogan bump.
If you get on the podcast,
if you get on Kill Tony and you do good,
like bump your following.
You're gonna at least get booked for the secret show, and then that's like.
So there's 2 people that I could think of was Hans Kim and
William Montgomery.
Yeah. So they came on, did the show, and now, like, basically homeless. Like,
Hans Kim was homeless. He was living in his van.
And did this 1 minute, and then came on a few times, did the minute, and was doing well, and they liked him. So now, when, for like example, Jay went to Rogan a couple months ago, and Hans Kim opened up for Rogan. Like, so they can bump you up quite a bit. And they were ripping on him because Tony's like, yeah, you were homeless a couple months ago. Now you're eating steak dinners every night. Like, it's just crazy what like this show can do for some of these people.
Yeah, and that's how like Tony got his big break. Like,
yeah, which is cool. How that's what I meant going back.
But like going back,
Tony
like
started.
Yeah, at the Comedy Store, just like doing sets and like getting recognized.
Now he's doing his own thing, and now Rogan's opening up his own store. Yeah. That's going to be interesting. I think that's supposed to come up this coming year.
Mm-hmm. Soon. And it's cool, too, because Joe's so open-minded and, like, humble about everything. Yeah. It seems like he had Louis C.K. come through, and he was talking about, he's like, yeah, we're going to change some stuff up because, like, Louis thought it would be this way. And where it's not, there's no, like, I'm Joe Rogan, and this is how it's done. He's getting all his comedy buddies and bringing them through and taking advice. Like,
that's what I was gonna get. That's how I got on this conversation, I guess. Is imagine Joe, like, to how he is now. He's doing all this stuff, but he's so humble about it. Where, granted, the media tries to make him this big political thing, but like he always just looks at everybody's side and viewpoints, and he like analyzes it with them. Yeah. Or has somebody else on to analyze that against them, or. Like, he's some of the most intelligent people. I hate how he got politicized. Yeah. It's just like, he just seems so genuine with stuff.
And it's funny, too, because, like...
And now they're giving back.
The whole reason the podcast started is to talk shit. Like, just go on and talk stupid, and whoever listens. So he's like, why is my podcast, one, so big, but two, like, making Fox News and CNN, like, most of his content is still with all his comedian buddies.
Yeah.
Just talking stupid.
Yeah,
like,
and he'll straight up say, yeah, we were drinking or we're high as hell.
Yeah.
And they're trying to use this to get, like, we're these big propaganda machines. It's just crazy because, they just come after him because he has this huge following.
Yeah. He gets like 11 or 13 million views an episode.
Yes.
That's like 3 times the amount of any mainstream media source.
So he's a threat to what they're doing. They hate that.
Literally.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Oh yeah, I was gonna pull up I don't think we'll get copywritten or whatever.
Oh yeah. So what happened with that midget was there's a big bodybuilder, and somehow Tony asks him if he like lifts or like, because after their minute, Tony will do like a 10-minute interview with them and ask them questions, and if they're like, yeah, I lift weights, or like
I drum or
sing,
or I rap,
he'll make them do it.
Yeah.
There was one dude that like said he was into feet, and Tony pulled a chick up on stage to let the guy smell his feet or smell her feet.
There's the comedy of that as well as like the comedy that these guys are doing as their skit.
So Tony's like, how many times do you think you could overhead press a midget? And the guy's like, 50 or something. And he's like, oh, well, the manager of the strip club next door he's a little guy. Like, he looks up, he's like, where's whatever his name is? And all of a sudden, here comes the guy. And he, right on stage, just starts shoulder pressing this midget. Like, oh, it was so funny. He's had like 2 like big, fatter guys. And he bets them, like they make a bet on stage of who can lose the most weight in a month. And Tony gets a scale and weighs them, and a month later brings them back and weighs them again. And I forget what like the reward was or the prize was.
Did either one of them do good, or did they?
No, the one dude gained like 30 pounds.
Shut up.
And he's all pissed off on stage. He's like, there's no fucking way. No fucking way. And he's just, scale's broken. So they get a different scale. He steps on it, and it was more. Like, but yeah, I wish that William Montgomery, he's the new Norm Macdonald dude. I don't know if you get into Norm Macdonald, but he's kind of like, I don't know how to explain him. He's like, he acts dumb. Like he's stupid. Like when you watch him, he says like, acts like your crazy uncle or acts really dumb. But like Letterman, what's his name? From Larry King, he's interviewed him, and they're all like, he's so intelligent. Like he's so smart that he plays the dumb guy or like the crazy uncle. Like, and this William Montgomery is like that because he's completely normal but just acts super crazy on stage. And I just like, it's the funniest thing.
You have to watch it a few times to understand his bit. Otherwise, like I remember talking about that where I thought he was just this fucking psycho on stage, but then you catch on. And it's like, okay, now I see where the comedy comes in. I'm gonna pull up best minute here.
Of who?
This documentary about a couple that smoked meth for the first time. They smoked meth, got really high, and then ran out of their car in negative 20-degree weather and then froze to death. Real tragic shit. And the lesson I took from that was this. Meth is a summer drug.
So now, just in case we get copyright, I just pause. So this is a random guy that just did the 1 minute.
Oh, this is Kill Tony?
Yeah, this is just a random guy. It's just the best minutes that they have.
I saw this other documentary about this guy who shot up an Amish school full of kids. Yeah. The only glimpse of modern technology those kids got were bullets whizzing to their tiny bearded faces. You want to know what the real... I love kitties, okay?
People think I'm joking. I'm not joking at all. My mom brought like 3 kids to my house the other day because her house, I live with her, and I was flipping out. I was like, kids!
It's like a 40-year-old black
I was like, I'm gonna love you forever. Cute kitty. And I was, oh, yeah. That was the plan.
Reach your Austin.
I gained 75 pounds after I got sober. I used to shoot heroin. Now it just looks like I'm smuggling it.
I love here. I'll pull up David Lucas.
Oh, he's really funny, but then basically him and Tony just go after each other and just roast each other. It's so funny.
It's just big black dude who like did he start going after not Tony's mom, Red Band?
No, that was William Montgomery.
Oh yeah, these guys are always the gay joke. He always has the gay jokes to tell.
At Tony, yeah.
Yeah. I think rape is bad. But if I had to rape somebody, I think I would rape a deaf lady. I feel like that's an easy not guilty. Like, I'll be goddamn if I'm found guilty on sound alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll walk in that bitch house disguising my voice like I'm Fat Albert. I'll be like, hey, give me that pussy.
I don't think we'll get. I watch people do the Rogan thing. They'll like analyze his episodes and stuff, and I don't think they get copywritten. As long as you do like talkovers. I'm pretty sure.
I'm getting into white girls now, but y'all titties be tripping me out, boy. That shit. Y'all be having all titty and no nipple. That shit be weird as fuck. They're like, bitch, how I'm supposed to suck these invisible areolas you got? Huh? I'm gonna have to tattoo a nipple on your titty so I can suck this bitch. Like, and that motherfucking blue vein be so sexy that run down your titty, boy. Like, I wish I was a phlebotomist so I could take your blood, bitch. That shit looks lovely. I thank y'all.
Hell yeah. How dare you make fun of our white girls' titties? Amen, David.
Them nipples be invisible, Tony.
All titty, no nipple. I thought you were talking about your own chest. I didn't even realize. Oh, look at the look on his face tonight. He's ready. Look at this.
Tony, you look like a gay Grim Reaper.
Oh, you son of a bitch. He ready. He's like Tiffany Faddish.
Tony got a sickle with a dildo on the end.
It is so insane that you can keep making these jokes so funny. A sickle with a dildo at the end?
Hell yeah.
That is absolutely incredible.
Tony, I heard you went to jail just for the naked showers.
Wow. I heard you went to jail just so you could get Jussie Smollett's Subway sandwich from it. Topical. Points for topical. That counts.
Tony, you steal from Walmart just for the pat downs. I think it's in the front, officer.
You son of a bitch. D Madness is laughing really hard at this as he's walking away.
Tony, I heard your booty hole look like the bucket of destiny.
All right.
It's just great, like, middle of the show, he just goes off on literally the host of the show, just ripping him apart.
Yeah, he'll have an opener, a middle act, and a closer that are like regulars that have all made it from the show. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like from they were on the show and now he uses them
to
open up his show.
They're like regulars of the show, so they're automatically guaranteed a minute in an interview. Like just the premise of it alone is it's almost like genius level because they let anything go, which is completely opposite of today.
Yep.
They make fun of anything. And Tony makes them do absurd things on stage that's just hilarious. Like,
That's it. Like, they're going against the whole cancel culture thing, and I think that's why it's also blowing up too, because it's been going on for years. But I feel like if you look at now, the views are they're exponentially just. It seems like they have a shitload of views.
Yeah.
And I think Tony's making a name for himself too in the last couple of years.
Have you watched those like Protect Our Park episodes on Rogan?
Who does he do them with again?
He does them with Ari Shafir, Shane Gillis, Mark Normand. I feel like I'm forgetting.
Yes.
one.
Yeah. Yep. And there's one more. But
who am I forgetting?
Did you know that Shane and Rogan aren't long-term friends either? Like,
no.
He talked about the Rogan bump. How all of a sudden he was on Rogan. He's like, yeah, it sucked. Like, I was so bad.
Yeah, Shane Gillis was, he got his start. He was part of SNL.
Yeah.
And he has a podcast and like a podcast with one of his like high school buddies or something. And when he made it on SNL, he got like quote unquote canceled before he ever even
made it big, made a name for
like,
himself.
I don't even think he was part of like a season. Like, he was just on like, if he's in episodes, it's like a few episodes, and then he got canceled. But he had already started a stand-up career. That's how he got onto SNL. So he was like a struggling comic, but he was really funny and like made it on SNL.
Yep.
And then got canceled, and then that's kind of how everybody really found out about him.
When he got canceled.
Like, being canceled was almost his big break.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I know he talked about, when he was on Rogan the first time, he talked about SNL and stuff, and he's like, I just sucked because I was so nervous, I didn't know what to talk about.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, that like bumped his career.
On Rogan,
Then he was back, and now he's doing shows, like you said, Protect Our Parks. He's on there all the time.
Dude, and YouTube is becoming a big thing for people putting their specials out. Like, it was Netflix. Like, everybody wanted a Netflix deal. Like, stand-up on Netflix is a huge thing. And, like, your big break was Netflix. Like, instead of a HBO or Comedy Central putting specials out, it was Netflix. And now it's turning into YouTube because it gives...
Well, because I think
you have more like creative content,
and with Netflix they had with like Dave Chappelle and stuff with the big cancel thing, and then
but Netflix didn't cancel him.
But they didn't
even take him down.
They didn't take it down.
No, I think it's
because it was right around there where then who's the other big comic that I'm thinking of? He's got his own, Andrew Schultz, where he didn't want to do it on there. Then he went to YouTube.
I think you just have more. It's like your own thing on YouTube. There's nobody telling you how to do anything. Where like if you're signing these Netflix deals, they're still kind of
they're taking a revenue source from it too.
Where YouTube, you're building your own brand, and then like Louis C.K. He puts everything out on his own website. Like, all his specials you can buy for like $5 a piece. He had a FX series that he bought or got the rights for. Now you can only find it on his website. Like, all these comedians are going, like, well, not all of them, but there was one that did their special exclusively on Louis C.K.'s website. What
they're trying to do is make their own platforms.
Yeah, everybody's going to like their own thing.
And I think with Rogan, they're going to be able to do that even more so.
Yeah.
I think he's going to end up making his own platform. Like, it's going to be... I don't
know what he signed for Spotify. But.
Yeah, but I think what's going to happen, I mean, for other comics, is he's going to do his own store, and I think eventually that's going to turn into its own... We film your special here.
Yeah.
And then he's going to blow people up. Mm-hmm. Because that's not going to go away. The comedy, it's not going to go away. There's just
that's like as old as medieval times, like the village jester that was just going around.
A way of how they can get around these stupid canceled things, and that's why I think if they go their own way, you're not using other platforms. A comic is going to make the platform.
Yeah, but then greed will still go into play. It's all just going to be like, if you want Andrew Schultz's special, you have to buy it off of his website. There's not going to be like a centralized.
I think that's still, like, you're still giving back to that comic for their work. You're not going to HBO and, like, they're getting rid of that third party type deal.
And the only way and podcasts are getting so big that, like, if you're into Rogan, you know who Joey Diaz, Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer are, and then you're going to be like, well, they all have their own podcasts. Then you go to Joey Diaz, then you find out about, like, Theo Vaughn. Then you're like, oh, he was on Rogan too? Yep. And then you go into that, and Theo's got his own podcast. Theo has his own podcast. Like, you go get into that, and then it's just going to be like, I'm releasing a special on my website. And then if it's on your own website, you can say whatever you want, do whatever you want. All the revenue's yours.
I think that's how it should go, though, because then they can do whatever the hell they want, which would be better, because then the comedy would be even better. I like looking back at some of the old ones, like that one with Chris Rock, dude. Every time I watch that bit, I laugh so hard.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you ain't supposed to go to jail. Like, what you want? A cookie?
What you want, cookie?
Oh, Anna loves that from Michael Scott when he does it in the office. And I'm like, you know where that's from? And then I show her the bit, and she's like, he did such a good job. Because when he comes to the office, he's like, beep, beep, everything he's saying. It's like, what you want? A cookie?
Yeah. I can't believe The Office. You look
that
back,
would not get aired today, it feels like. But now you can still get it on stuff, though.
On the second episode of the series, I think it's the second, it's in the first season for sure, it's called Diversity Day, where Michael does that bit with Chris Rock, and then Kevin, who's supposed to be like this dumb guy of the show, and he is like reenacting what Michael said in front of like this. They had to, like, corporate pulled in
a review board.
It was a guy that was supposed to teach about diversity because of what Michael said.
Yeah.
And in front of this guy, Kevin's reciting it, and it's supposed to be like Michael's getting in trouble, and Michael's like, he's ruining it, and then he does it himself.
And the guy was a black dude, too.
He's like, my name's Mr. Brown, and Michael's like, first test, I will not call you that. It's like, well, that's my name, so. So then after that, Michael's like, I didn't learn anything from this guy. He did it completely wrong. So he does his own diversity seminar, which was everybody in the office picks by random a card and puts it on their forehead.
Charades.
And it's a different ethnicity. And then they go around, and the other person has to reenact what ethnicity you are, and then you have to try to guess by how they're stereotyping this ethnicity. What is on your card? Like, completely racist. And this is your TV show.
But it's not like they're not trying to be racist. Like
it's just a
comedy.
Joke.
Yeah,
it's just
comedy.
A joke.
Yeah. And that's why it's funny. Like, everybody knows if you had to stereotype some ethnicity, you would do the same shit they did.
Like, I think Dwight had Asian, and Pam's like, I guess under certain stereotypes, you wouldn't be able to drive a car very well. And he's like, am I a woman? It's just like, dude.
That's a good ass show. I
it's
think
so
Noah,
funny.
I think Noah used to watch it at college, and I never really watched anything. And then when Anna would come, we started watching The Office with Noah a couple times, and then we watched the whole thing ourselves. And now today, like, that's the show we don't have to watch. We just throw on a couple random episodes.
And then you'll be on your computer and you'll just catch it out of, like, in your subconscious almost, and you'll just be like, like, just giggly. But I forget what I was going to say now. I don't remember.
I can't tell you.
I know.
My parents might stop over later.
Duker?
Yeah. I didn't have, my mom just texted me, "Are you home?" I said, "Maybe like in an hour." She said, "I'll text you around then. Maybe we'll be heading that way." Oh, what was the other one? Rogan's last podcast with Graham on there.
Oh, yeah. I was super excited.
Did you get through the whole thing?
No.
What'd you get? About an hour?
About 3/4 through,
Yeah,
maybe.
I think, what am I, an hour 20 maybe?
That's one that...
I pulled it up this morning because I'm like, I definitely want to talk about that. And I knew you were going to be listening to it by then.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to get some input from it. I'm about halfway. I'm an hour and 18 minutes. I got an hour 34 left.
The thing with that one is, like, normally with podcasts, I just listen to them while I'm at work. So, but that's one that, like, there's a lot of times that Jamie will give the HDMI to the cable, or like the HDMI cable
And you want
to the TV.
You want to see it.
And he gives it to Graham and Randall, and then they're like, "See right here on the map," and they're like showing their cursor. And then if you're just listening, like, then I'm at work pulling my phone out, like, what are they like? Literally, like, I'll just pull it out and like be looking at it, like, what are they talking about? And then it's like, I got to put this away and just listen at home.
There was a lot of interesting points.
So I haven't had time to fully get through it.
The biggest, what was the biggest thing that they talked about
so far?
Yeah, what was like the main point of the podcast?
Ooh. Well, the main point was to promote Graham's new Netflix special that came out today.
And
called
that was
Ancient Apocalypse.
Yep. Which I clicked on the first episode earlier just to kind of see what it was. But I was focused on stuff on my computer too, where I'm like, nope, I gotta just be able to sit and watch this. But it was they talked about how scientists now say that human civilization is like 6,000 years old.
Yeah.
Where these guys are saying, no, that's not true. That's what today's scientists are saying, but there's evidence that there were civilizations 12,000 years ago. At least.
Beyond 12,000 years.
At least 12.
So they get into, it's called the Younger Dryas impact theory. And that says that about 12,000 years ago, we got hit by a comet or a meteor.
Or multiple fragments of one.
And it wiped out civilization. And it reset civilization as we know it today. And civilization was just as advanced or farther advanced than we were before that. We are now, before that happened. And
with different technologies, though.
They
so
think, yeah.
Now, if you think of our sort of technology, you're thinking, okay, they were more advanced than us. Would they have laser beams? Did they like? You're thinking futuristic type things that we think now.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason you're thinking that, my assumption, the reason I would think that is because the way we use technology is we think of technology like physics,
mechanical advantage,
phones, like big tech, like metaverse.
Yeah.
We're thinking these kinds of things, whereas their technology, if you ever heard of Nikola Tesla, he had, this is proven fact, he had tons of different patents and different designs for things like a generator that didn't require any type of fossil fuel or energy source besides frequency and geometry that would create a generator, and it would create power. Now you think that and you're like, oh, that's bullshit or futuristic.
But it would, instead of generating electricity, it would generate frequencies. And when you match something with
the table of elements, everything has a frequency. Even different foods have frequencies. Everything has a frequency. So if you could match the frequency, this is the theory. So there's actually a device that individuals have been working on for the past couple of decades that is going to expose this technology, which they now have the patents in place, and just in the last couple months, where they're going to bring this forward, where they were hiding it because of maybe a variety of reasons, thinking is like Tesla, where the government took his patents and basically hid his patents. They buried them, and that happened. Like you can look that's a real thing. It happened. So there's either that fact or I don't know about the funding, because really, so if you go against what modern science is saying, where you don't go to school, you get your PhD, you have to study things this way, this is how it is, believe these concepts, where these guys are not doing that.
Well, that with Tesla, that's like brand new, brought to the table on that episode. Yes. That's brand new.
But Tesla did this.
Yeah.
But now these are people that are bringing this technology forward.
So they think that that technology as we know it today, when we got reset, we went into like mechanical advantage technology, like the wheel.
Crane,
then that goes into cranes, pulleys, combustible engines.
Yep.
Where before that, they might have been...
Now, we've only been doing this for a couple hundred years. This technology.
Well, like mechanical advantage is back to like the wheel.
Yes, but that's only a few, maybe 1,000.
I don't know how long ago the wheel was
invented. Basically what I'm trying to say is, if they think civilization was 6,000 years, we've only been using this technology for 6,000 years, and now we're advanced to the point where we are today. We say we started at the wheel, now we're here today. Combustible engines, etc., nuclear power.
But that was the the path of technology that we chose.
Took. Yep.
Where these people back then, before they got wiped out, might have been on that Tesla route, and thousands of years of technology went into matching frequencies, and that's how
it would move. You could move objects.
You could move things. Like, we don't know how. It's physically impossible to make the Great Pyramids today. Like, they're within like a 60th of a degree to due north.
And the people are thinking they did this by hand. What their assumption is now, that the sand was wet, they were able to move these 70-ton stones and put them in place.
Yeah,
but that doesn't make any sense if you think, how did you get this 300 feet in the air?
There's so many variables of like, it doesn't make sense, it can't be a coincidence, but mainstream science only is just like, well, it's a coincidence.
And that's the reason they're saying this or think this, is because they're limiting the science to what we know today as science. Whereas, because we took this technological route, where if now, like Tesla's example of this machine or device or I don't know what's it going to be yet. Like, they only showed a glimpse of like what it was. But if you were to take that technological route for 6,000, 10,000 years, and they were going that way, it would make sense that you'd be able to build something that way, the same way we're able to build something like a skyscraper today with the technology that we use.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you? Because that's how I was like wrapping my head around it. Where it's that's totally plausible if that's the type of technology that you've had and advanced on for thousands of years.
But then, more than that, they show so much evidence, like architecturally throughout the earth, of like, when you look at riverbeds, and I forget what he calls it, where it's like you can see the valley where the river is, almost like a canyon, and then the river's a tiny little river that runs through it. But if you look at a big scale, you can see that.
Look across, you can see a bluff, one side, bluff on the other, and it's continuous.
So they'll show evidence of like the ice age and multiple ice ages, and because once the comet,
they carbon dated things, radioactive.
But then they've also gotten into how carbon dating isn't really, like, how we use it today isn't really even reliable, because you're trying to date the rock itself. Like, a fossil is just a rock.
Yeah.
but you can't date the rock. Like, it's impossible for us to date the rock, so you have to date the carbon around the rock, and that is your best assumption of what the rock, how old the rock is, but you don't know how old the actual rock is.
And they've found things from 12 to 15,000 years before they originally are claiming that civilization was here. But they also have old maps that were designed before the Antarctica, and if you look at some of the more recent maps before, like, we think we said 1800 or something, we didn't find Antarctica. It's blank on the map. Yeah, but they have maps from like 1500 where it's there, and it's actually bigger than what it is now.
It has a landform.
Yes, but that would make sense if, and these maps designed then were,
it's called the Perry-Reese map.
They were designed from little bits of maps from people even further back. So they believe when it was the Ice Age, which when your woolly mammoth, your saber-toothed tiger, all those things went extinct, that there was civilization at the time, somebody mapping out the world still at that time.
Yeah, so
from maps that they have found.
So the weird part is that this Perry-Reese map was created in the 1500s, but I believe, like you said, that it was until the 1800s we actually discovered Antarctica, but also that this Perry-Reese map was formed from an explorer that took... There's
a name for the maps that he found.
He used multiple maps to create his map. And
because obviously it was not, well, actually the longitude, latitude, that was like fucking dead nuts comparable to today. So the technology, somehow they still were able to do that, but yet it's not like today's map where you have a GPS, a satellite that's looking over the whole thing. These people were mapped. Like, that's why I think it's another whole crazy thing too, trying to map back then versus now, where it's like, oh yeah, look at the satellite, boom, there it is. But yet these people are within degrees of today.
Yeah.
So you had to have some sort of technology to figure that out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think definitely look into it's Rogan's latest podcast. Graham Hancock and
Randall Carlson.
Yeah, super interesting.
And there's probably about a dozen other episodes on Rogan with those two. And Graham Hancock has a number of books. Fingerprints of the Gods is his first one. The first one was in the mid-90s. I'm actually reading that one right now. Fingerprints of the Gods. And that was all kind of like conspiracy theory. Like, that was his theories behind things. And then he does, like, he sprinkles in evidence of how he came to this theory. But then he wrote Magicians of the Gods, which goes even farther. That's like 10 years later, another book. A little bit more evidence. And then he wrote another one. Is it America Before or something? Earth's Lost Civilizations,
well,
maybe I
think it's important too to look at the fact that they're finding more information as time goes on. They're finding more. You find more, or things are getting older because we're finding more evidence. But yet, mainstream science won't acknowledge these things.
And they call him a pseudoscientist.
Yet we're finding, like, the Amazon, this place that is this mysterious jungle that people don't inhabit besides these weird tribes or whatever, a couple thousand. There's civilization there that's over 10,000 years old that they found with radar, and they can see. We've maybe talked about this before, but now it's even more relatable.
It's called LiDAR.
Yeah, where they can now see there's actually civilizations underneath the jungle.
Yeah, it uses radar because the jungle completely absorbed where, like, you drive across with an airplane or a helicopter, all you see is trees because the jungle is so overgrown.
It's thousands of years.
But they made this radar that goes on helicopters that will sonar down, and it'll map out it'll take the trees out of it.
Yep.
And there's pyramids in there, and
yep, different terraces, different levels of things, like all sort. You can clearly see there's different structure in there. And a few years ago, this wasn't a thing. So I don't understand how people are saying that. But more evidence that we're finding that nope, civilization wasn't a thing.
There's civilizations in there, and the Amazon rainforest. I forget what the trees and all that are, but the agriculture that overtook it and created it a jungle isn't indigenous to that area of land. Like they were using those plants as agriculture for the societies, and then all of a sudden they're wiped out. I think there's evidence that, I don't know if it was they were trading with Europe, and there was a few civilizations that they found in there that they think that were trading with Europe and contracted like syphilis or some disease from, and it wiped them out. But there's multiple that are just lost in there that mainstream science.
We're gonna keep ending up finding over
and
time.
There's like Atlantis, evidence of that. There's evidence of there's another one
which
that's buried under.
It's
undersea, because when the Younger Dryas happened and we went into an ice age, all that ice melted and it
raises sea level.
It raises sea level, and then it drown out all these societies
I think it's by the Bahamas.
That are lost under the ocean.
There's one by the Bahamas, I believe it is.
But archaeologists won't go down there.
They say they said it's natural too.
Yeah.
Because these guys dive and they look at it, and then they find these old maps and they compare it to these maps, and there's this big road, they call it, but it's all these rocks that are perfectly carved and balanced out with more rocks underneath them to level them all out to create a road, and they're trying to say this is just a natural occurrence. Just I'd be like saying the pyramids just naturally occurred. But I think another thing you have to comprehend or understand is in grade school you're taught about the glaciers. Especially around here, we're talking about how Green Lake and the Glacier Monument
Kettle
Park.
Moraine,
these glaciers came through, big ice shoves, all that, which they talk about is the theory of these asteroids and breaking up and hitting the North Pole area, the polar ice caps. What happened is you had this massive amount of heat, and then you're breaking off, these big ice chunks are breaking off, sliding down, massive amounts of water. That's how you're forming these valleys. The glaciers are carving through because it's all just rushing down from this extreme amount of heat so fast, where these big pieces are just. That's why. So they found there's different all over the world. There's different parts of the world that they'll find these huge rocks that are all carved out and made for building things, and that's what they think is they got stuck in these ice caps, and then they icebergs, whatever you want to call them, and they push down through with all these huge amounts of water that can't. It seems so crazy because you're no way, that wouldn't happen today. You look
But then you look at there was an episode I was watching where Randall Carlson was breaking it down of have you ever went into a lake and put goggles on where it's only a foot deep and you see the little sand ripples on the bottom of the floor, or gone snorkeling out in the ocean and you see them ripples on the sand floor and they're all kind of unison, but they all have a certain look. When you go and look at the Kettle Moraine or Nebraska where they're hunting, and you look at that geographically on a map, it looks just like the ocean floor. So when we cross that river and then you're in South Dakota and it's flat, and then all of a sudden there's this drop off and then there's this little river, and then all of a sudden it's these rolling hills. It's if you look at that on a topographical map,
that would all be covered in water.
It all looks like the ocean floor almost, and that's all signs of massive flooding. You can tell there's so much evidence, and then all of a sudden it quickly dried up and it hardened. Because, obviously, the ground's going to harden, and that's why we have these big rolling hills now.
I just think it's crazy that you wouldn't even want to accept that that's a...
But the thing
Why do you think they don't want to...
I don't know. And they call them, if you look up Graham Hancock's Wikipedia page, they call him a pseudoscientist.
To discredit him.
Which is like saying you're the Antichrist to science.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're mocking science, basically. And he's
you can
like
clearly feel his like
he
his
says
love
it all
for
the time. He's like, I'm not even a scientist. I'm a researcher and an author and
just trying to
a journalist. I'm just trying to journal the research that I'm finding. I don't think he has a PhD. He's not a scientist. Why are you calling him a pseudoscientist?
To discredit him.
They're just trying to demonize him and.
I just think it's so weird. Like, what's their benefit?
I don't know. I don't know what the benefit is.
Why do we not want to know about all this?
But then, like, they talk about, like, climate change and, like, global warming and how...
Do you think that's why, global warming?
It's the Earth's, like, they show evidence of, like, dozens of ice ages and that the Earth goes naturally through cycles of heating and cooling. And that... just naturally we'll go from ice age to like summer.
We've talked about that too. I think is how global warming now is going to be this huge thing. You look at the World Economic Forum, like years ago in 2000, people talked about this was going to be a reason for the elites or the governments to start cracking down on shit. You wonder if that's their goal. There's obviously some. I don't understand how you can't acknowledge or believe the fact that there's some sort of financial benefit for these people that want to keep pushing global warming. Where if that's, dude, the Earth, we've only been studying that for 100 years, and if we're talking about civilization that's 12,000 plus years old,
that's just civilization. Science says the Earth is millions of years old.
So now we're looking at you're talking about a penny to a billion trillionaire. It doesn't make any sense that they're trying to grab all this data from 100 years when you have a billion years to look at.
But then you look at evidence that shows dozens of ice ages and the Earth naturally goes through heating and cooling cycles. But then there's got to be some sort of
financial reasons, man.
I don't know. Why isn't that at least I could see if there was like, let's look into this. Well, here's the evidence that proves this wrong. And this is why we're going against it. But
they do try doing that. They keep trying to say there's evidence that there's global warming. There's all, but
yeah, the Earth is warming.
They don't want to accept that it's not. They don't want to accept that it's not because of us.
Yeah, it is warming.
They want to say it's all us. It's all because of our gas. We're burning fossil fuels. We have cows that are shitting and eating grass, and we gotta cut out. Dude, yeah. This isn't conspiracy either. Like Bill Gates, he's one of the largest financial backers of the fake meat, and that's all financial. But that's why he's all against global warming, like climate change, blah blah blah.
He's all for it.
Yeah, because his ass has all this money on the line to make the shift.
Yeah.
You got to look where the money is.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't.
Definitely look up that last podcast.
And watch his well, really, I would say read his books because his books are...
Start at the podcast, I think, just to get like... If you find any interest in this conversation, check out that podcast. Mm-hmm. And just kind of go from there. And make your own decision. Well,
you can check out any of them. Literally, you could just... Joe Rogan...
Message us with some feedback too. I want to hear some concepts or why. I'm not going to shit on you if you believe global warming, but I'd like to know why you believe it. Like what?
Well, like
from school, from the media, from your own.
I've tried researching why they demonize Graham Hancock and what evidence there is against the evidence they're bringing forward, and I'm literally struggling to find evidence that goes against it. It's just he's being demonized. And maybe I'm not looking, so I would genuinely like to see that, to see if like...
Yes. So we're not forming a confirmation bias that we believe him just because...
That and if I'm wrong, like I don't want to keep reading his books and talking stupid. Like But to me, right now, it seems like he is completely
absolutely
right and being demonized. So if I'm wrong, I would definitely like to know it.
Good point. I don't want to just spit these things out here like they're 100% fact, but also until somebody can be like, hey, this is why it's wrong, I'd like to know. Or believe, I don't want to keep believing that we think that, because we're never told that it's different besides besides the mainstream beliefs of it.
But even like you look at the mainstream beliefs of the pyramids.
That's why I totally look at this like absolutely plausible.
There's so much. The 3 pyramids perfectly aligned to I forget what constellation, but it was like a religious something that like, because they used to like worship almost the constellations.
Yeah.
It was like a constellation of significance. Each point of the pyramid perfectly aligns up in the sky to this constellation.
You wonder why that is too.
They're all perfectly within like a 60th of a degree due north. Every block is perfectly in place to come to a perfect peak. If you were off on one block, it would throw the whole pyramid off. In the King's Chamber, which is in like 150 feet in the air and dead center of the pyramid.
It's 350.
Well, the whole thing's 400. So.
Okay. I just remember him saying it's like high as fuck.
And I think there's 6 or 8 rectangular pieces of granite that are like trusses
70 ton each.
And they're 70 tons. And they know where they got the granite from, and it's 500 miles to the south. So even if like mainstream science believes that pyramids were done on the backs of slaves, in order to get those through with slaves and even with modern technology,
500
a
miles.
crane wouldn't be able to boom out that far away from itself and that high without tipping the crane over. So then they're like, oh well, they built a ramp. Well, in order for humans to push something, as many as you can fit on that block, to push it, even if they could up a ramp, it couldn't be more than like 1.5 degrees, and it's so high that they'd have to build the ramp miles, like tens of miles long. And if you're putting something on there that's that heavy, how do you brace the ramp? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So you put all of this, like, how did it happen, together, and then mainstream science is just like, it's a coincidence.
Yeah, we don't know.
It's aliens. Which maybe it is aliens. I don't know. But the evidence sure seems to stack that we were far more advanced and got wiped out.
We could go that route, too. There's a lot of different evidence, too, where, like, before aliens were all conspiracy, now the FBI and CIA are talking about extraterrestrial beings and shit. That's just new in the last year.
Yeah, I still don't know if I believe it.
I don't know much about it to dive into it, but I think it's still crazy that our own government's finally being like, yeah, hey, like, after so many Navy pilots were like, yeah, I don't know what it was. It could be another country. I mean, maybe they got technology that's but then you look at that too. If there was another civilization that used a different type of geometry or force,
I don't know, because you look at
that's why I think it opens up so many options. Like that new machine that they're gonna show. Who the fuck knows? Who knows? Who knows if what if we do grab that and run with it? And then that's the new technology, just like nuclear power is the new technology, where we didn't think that was going to be a thing. We thought it was way too dangerous. Well, it is pretty dangerous to fuck with, but I like how Graham said, yeah, we don't have the, what was it?
He said we're not mature enough.
Yeah, the maturity to deal with that. Oh, another thing I want to talk about, nootropics.
Yeah.
Because we talked about, the last podcast we mentioned Andrew Huberman when he talked about nicotine. He had one on alcohol, marijuana. He did a bunch of different podcast episodes on those. But also I thought of that because he did the last one on meditation too. And I think he has one on nootropics as well, besides just talking about nicotine as one. But yeah, I was going to talk about some that I've tried or whatever. Because remember I told you to about that stack. There's 4 different ones. The one thing I've probably noticed, possibly not getting like that afternoon crash very often.
Really?
Not even with a lot like caffeine. Like with this time change a little bit, I got it just because it's like getting dark, but that's normal. Like your brain is literally like, oh, it's dark. Like time.
Well, the trees are associated with that. That's why the trees lose their leaves. I just learned that recently.
As far as.
So the trees.
I thought that was just cold.
No, it's so. Notice, like, we've had very warm.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough to transfer sap on a tree. Like, we just had 70 degrees. It's that with this type of season is shorter daylight, so then the trees aren't getting the nutrients out of the sun, and then the tree will start to it knows to, like, store its sap, because then the cold is coming.
And then it uses that as an energy source, like
so
a glucose.
Then it holds its sap, because if it was still distributing its sap throughout winter, it would freeze and like die. So but it's off of the daylight that triggers the tree. Yeah, for the tree to start holding.
Yeah, I definitely
its sap.
notice like right now I'll get a little bit just because I have to get used to that. But like in the summer, especially July when I started it, dude, I felt like I was like taking Adderall like every other day, almost like a microdose or something. Really? Yeah, it was interesting. There was I got 4 of them: huperzine A, alpha GPC, acetyl L-carnitine, and then ginkgo biloba, I think is how you say it. The ginkgo, I started taking that, and when I went into the doctor, it was the first time I've never had high blood pressure. And I've been taking it, and the last 3 times I went to the doctor since taking it, my blood pressure has been normal. And that's one of 4 things that I've added. My workouts are the same, my food's the same, probably worse than what it was in the past. Even with like nicotine a little bit, your blood pressure is supposed to go up. Even with coffee before, too, my blood pressure wasn't as high as what it has been before, even without it. Usually I'm always like 150 plus, and that's not good. 130 is what I've been at now. But a ginkgo is supposed to help with blood flow, so I'm like, okay, well that would make sense. Like if it dilates your blood vessels, so then you're not as constricted, so your blood pressure is not as high. That was my thought, at least. But I think, like in the gym too, being able to push like a little bit more or like recover faster in between sets. And that is supposed to, I think it's from the alpha GPC, and then the acetyl-carnitine is supposed to be like a good athletic boost, but it helps with well, do you remember how on Huberman, how we talked about how there's nicotinic receptors, but there's also these choline receptors? Yep. And they work hand in hand. So like nicotine helps with focus because it works with choline receptors. Mm-hmm. So like supplementing with acetylcholine. Acetylcholine's a key neurotransmitter, which will help with learning capacity, like your processing speed, focus. So then you that obviously was like a little bit clear. Like I felt like I said, like in July when that was the first time I took all of them, like every single day for the whole month, and I felt like that was my best month, business wise too, by like a long shot. And I don't know if I was working a little bit more too, but I think it was just easier to just keep on like pushing through. Like I didn't feel as fatigued and stuff.
So what is it supposed to do? Like
which part? Like you know how like you take Adderall? You've taken Adderall before, possibly prescribed it, maybe years ago.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so you know people take that to study and like you're just locked in. It's like a minuscule amount of that, where like you don't have like the sweating or the
but like
heartbeat.
But it's not the same chemical.
No, but it helps release release the chemicals that releases.
But it's still a chemical, right?
Yeah, like acetylcholine's a neuroreceptor in your brain, like neurotransmitter, like a chemical in your brain. Mm-hmm. Now you're giving yourself more acetylcholine, like you're supplementing. There's like science behind how it, especially the older you get, you don't produce it as much.
I'm worried that it's like testosterone, where all of a sudden...
it doesn't, if you take it, it doesn't shut it off. You're just like, it's like taking a multivitamin where like if you're short on B12, like you're supplementing to get a max.
So where is this stuff like naturally found?
A lot of it's plant-based stuff. Like it's not like they're making it in a lab. Like it's just extracts of things. Like it's in certain foods and stuff, like meats. You're like extracting it. Like I should look up exactly. Like here. We got a little bit of feedback going.
But at least we fixed the echo. What are you looking up?
I was going to look up how they make like the actual, but I feel like I could...
Oh, yeah.
I would be fucking reading for days on that.
Jamie, pull it up.
Yep.
Dude, he's so good.
I don't know how he's on top of that so fast. Like,
he's so fast.
He must, like, when you're talking about it, he must just be researching it and then has a tab. And if you don't talk about it, he just makes a new tab. Go back.
But I think him and Joe are always on the same page of, like, what's interesting.
He's done it for so many years now, too, where he probably knows, like, yeah, they're going to want me to...
Yeah. But I think, like, his level of what's interesting and what he finds, like, interesting out of the conversation, where he's, like fact-checking or, like, that's really interesting. Yeah, let's see what the internet says. And then Joe's like, Jamie, pull that up. Like, they're always on the same page
and he's
about
like,
that.
well, actually, it says this. Or that is really interesting.
What'd you find?
It's just like all too many big words. If I read it, I would have to read it like 3 times to comprehend it and then explain it to you.
And no lies.
Wait, so this is what's going on? Well, all right. Well, Huperzine A was one of them. I'll just do a quick bullet list of what it is. So it boosts acetylcholine in your brain, which acetylcholine, it's a key neurotransmitter, which helps, like I said, with learning capacity and your processing speed. So what Huperzine A does is it'll help stop the breakdown of acetylcholine in your brain. So then you have more accessible in your brain. So then your memory, your processing speed is better. Right? Mm-hmm. And then alpha GPC is another direct source of choline, which it's one of the only ones that will turn directly into acetylcholine when you ingest it. And then that's what helps improve your physical performance, like power output. They've done studies where, like say a strength training, where you're able to just, which might not seem like a lot, like as a performance enhancer or whatever, but just a little bit to like grind out that extra little bit, like another rep, like adding creatine. Mm-hmm. And then that helps prevent choline reduction, like when you're working out. So then you can supplement that. Like you could take that around. They say to take it around your workout, but I just take it all. I just took all of it in the morning just so I wouldn't forget. Just because I hate like trying to time things out. Like I gotta take this. And so then acetylcarnitine, that's a mitochondria boosting supplement, which mitochondrial cells are dense in your brain. And then that's the acetyl L-carnitine actually crosses the blood-brain barrier, so it's accessible by the body. And then that helps reduce fatigue, increase sperm production, and improves muscular endurance. And then the ginkgo, that increases your blood flow, which you get better workouts. And obviously, if it's going to help somebody with like high blood pressure, instead of taking high blood pressure medicine, fucking just try that for a little bit and just see, because that's a little bit more natural than that's like a mineral or whatever, instead of trying to, I'm not saying don't do this to your doctor, get doctor's permission or whatever. Don't quote me on it. But if you don't want to take another pill from the doctor, try supplementing with this for a little bit and just see if your blood pressure is all right, and then do it every so often instead of having to take a pill every single day for blood pressure. Usually when you're on that, you have something with your liver or something else that'll come into play in 10 years, and you got to take something else. But ginkgo that's very specific for like memory benefits, and I've noticed that too. Like people say that you'll have like random memories of things. I've had like weird dreams that I've just out of the blue can remember, like it ties into some weird memory of some like just like weird shit. You know, like when you just have weird dreams, but it's like these dreams are weird, but they're tied into like a memory that I've had I wouldn't have thought of like growing up or something.
Yeah.
And then that enhances nitric oxide, which dilates your blood vessels, which helps with erections and oxygen uptake. And they think it's good for your skin, but they're not exactly sure why. But I think it's from increased blood flow. Like if you have good blood circulation, your skin and stuff is better. And I just take that at night sometimes, or take it in the morning right away just so I don't forget it. Because like I said, if I separate stuff, I end up forgetting it. So yeah, I did that for a month, and then I bought them again because it's all pretty cheap. Like for supplement wise, it's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
For a full month, and then I'll just take them like 2 or 3 times a week. But the fatigue I guess isn't there, but the like on top of your A game type shit, it's not as like profound. Like I don't notice it as much versus when I'm like every single day taking them. And the other one was 9-MEBC, which helps with dopamine receptor. That one's pretty new into research, but I've done that a few times, and I've noticed when I've taken that and then like hit a vape or any sort of nicotine, it feels like you're back at square one. It definitely does something, because very little amounts of nicotine are like you get the buzz right away.
What do you think like the dopamine overload that we get nowadays is doing to our brain?
I think we have our focus definitely down, libido for males definitely down, testosterone down. That could be a food type thing, but I think it has a lot to play with dopamine. I think delayed gratification's gone. Like a lot of people don't have that. Everything's very focused on here and now because we've just been taught quick releases of dopamine where you just want that high. Like it's a high.
Yeah.
Your body craves it. It's addicted to it. I think those are all factors. And those are all factors that you have to be, I think, completely aware of to have a good well-being or mental health, like a good quality of life. If you can delay gratification and you understand why you have to work for things for the future, whether it's yourself or your family or whatnot, to put yourself in a better situation, like you have to have that concept of being able to go through the hard shit to get to where you want to be. And if you're just always focused on that short-term hit, it's very hard to mentally put yourself in the position to do things for the future.
It's literally your brain tricking itself.
Mm-hmm. And like mental health wise too, like you like that dopamine rush, like your libido, a good relationship sexually and stuff, that's a huge quality of life thing for people. I think with the dopamine rush and the ease of porn, where that definitely plays a role in healthy relationships, whether you're trying to hook up with your hookup culture becomes a thing now, I think, because people want that quick, can I get it? And if you do, the fucking dopamine release on that is just sky high.
Serotonin.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was the other one? Forget what I said. Oh, where did I get? Quality of life. Sorry. Just your drive to do things too. I guess that was like part of the delayed gratification. But if you're always looking for that quick release and your dopamine levels are depleted, your drive to do shit is just not there. Which then, if you don't have any drive to do stuff, you always look for the quickest way or the easiest way out of things to get that next release. Or I don't know. I think it's all of that can be extremely negative if you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a vicious fucking cycle to play with. And I would say it's pretty evident in today's culture, especially with people 35 and younger.
Yeah.
Do you notice stuff with yourself with like, because we talked a little bit about like a dopamine detox and stuff.
Well, that's kind of what I'm like,
episode.
Why I'm so quiet is because I'm like trying to self-analyze myself almost, and where I can see that
affecting your life,
affecting my life.
Yeah, it's definitely something that goes on to like meditation too. I don't know if I've probably talked about that before on here too, where I think everybody should do some sort of meditation.
Yeah. Well, I'm just getting back into it.
Whether it's prayer or visualization, which I like visualization just because it kind of puts everything together. Where like you have that delayed gratification, you're like training that muscle because you're visualizing what you want. And it's not even all the steps that you have to do to get there. It's just focusing. Eventually, you have to reflect on that. You have to reflect on, what do I need to get there? Because just daydreaming about the shit's not going to get you there. Where I think a lot of people fall into the guru thing of, you got to imagine what you want, you got to do this. Well, I think so many people spend the time focusing on or thinking about what they want, but then not putting in the time or the work to get to where they want to be. So that's a dangerous loop that you can get yourself into. But when you start out visualizing, if you've never done it, you don't think about all the steps that you have to do to get there. Or, well, this is going to come into it. Because then you start doubting, I got to do this, and then I got to do that. Well, okay, I don't know if I can do this. Like, well, if I have to do that, can I really talk to that person or do this? Will I make this much by then? Like, you don't want to focus on that. You just want to focus on the end goal. Like, the easiest way is to do the follow along videos and just listen along with them and just like get yourself into that mindset and just train your mind to relax and not be running all over the place.
I think it just puts your mind in a certain state, frequency, if you will. But I think you can also...
Which, we should talk about that a little bit, because your brain does go into different frequencies.
We've talked about that on here
like when you're going to sleep and like waking up, like beta waves, alpha waves. When you do get into a meditation state, your brain does get into a different frequency. Go ahead. Sorry.
But I think like you can access that in different ways than just meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think like I know like when I'm doing an intense cardio session of either like I don't run very often, but like if I run 1 or 2 miles, I'm like in a certain state of mind where I can analyze
endorphin
like my whole life almost.
Yeah.
And be like, well, that and like knowing that there's different levels of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So like knowing that just because you had a thought doesn't mean it's your thought almost. Like you are not your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost have to like, when you're running and you be like, I gotta quit, to be able to separate yourself from that and be like, that's not my thought. I need to keep going.
Which that ties into, I think a lot of people that, when they're thinking negative about stuff, they assume that that's who they are.
Well, right, but that's what I was getting at is like when you can you learn to separate yourself from that thought.
Yep.
Like it teaches, like that's something that meditation can't teach you. You can't really meditate and learn that. There's different.
I don't know. I think you can use it. I think you can use meditation to analyze that.
Yeah, but I don't think you can just sit down. Well, maybe you can.
I think so. I think that's self-reflection, dude.
Because I didn't realize that until I started doing like hard gym, either like in the gym where like my arms are gonna literally fall off. But guess what? I got to do 3 more reps on the bench, and if I don't, I'm gonna drop this on myself. Like, where I was like forcing myself to do it. But then, like maybe you can. Maybe I just found it in
a different way. Yeah, I think both ways. I think everybody should do some sort of physical activity where they're exerting themselves mentally, like they're physically exhausted. But then after that, it becomes a mental battle. Yeah. And I think everybody needs to have that because you get into that state. You're analyzing like.
But I think there's different levels too.
Oh, there's definitely different levels.
Because I know like if I go for a jog, I don't get deep enough. Like it's harder, but a mile or 2 jog is only like 30 minutes. Or if I go out and hike and I can. Like I did 22 miles around Lake Geneva. I know by mile 16 I was like, yeah, I think I want to quit. Like this is dumb, but my car, I have to get to the car. So like now you're forced to again. Yeah. So then that next 6 miles is literally just me looking at the ground and I get like almost like a meditative experience out of it.
That's why I think.
And then you're hiking out in like the wilderness and you come to these realizations about yourself where I can like, then I sit down and I'm like, oh, it feels so good to sit down. And then you can like be in like a better state of mind to reflect even farther.
I think that part is self-awareness where some people are very low on a self-awareness scale. Where like if you got put in that situation, it's more of, they want to die. They don't care about anything else besides just like they might just be tearing themselves apart mentally. Where like you're just taking it in like fuck, like here it is. I gotta do the work. I gotta keep pushing. I gotta get through this. Where other people will just be in their head tearing themselves apart. Yeah. And
yeah, but you do tear yourself apart.
You do.
Like that's the best part of it.
You understand. You understand the concept of why you're doing it. You're self-analyzing. Some people, very little self-awareness.
But the payoff is so much.
Dude, I mean that's better. What separates. That's what separates. Honestly, I think people that have success in different areas of their life go through that kind of shit, and they purposely put themselves in those battles. Yeah. Look at a lot of successful people. 90% of them fucking work out. Some sort of physical strain so they can face the mental battle. Like what? Like yes, you're trying to be in good health, but a lot of people they like that mental battle.
It basically comes down to like you've heard the saying like
because how much better do you feel when you're done with it, right?
Well, it's not even when I'm done with it. Like even like midway through, like when I get to sit down and then you look around and you just see like this landscape that you're like, there's no. The only way that I can get to this point to see exactly what I'm seeing is to get here by foot. And you got to hike back here 12 miles. And now I'm turning around and I want to go farther. Like, I don't want to turn around yet, but I know that, like...
See, I like your rationale and reason for it. Like, I think there's a lot of people that do that, but I think there's a lot of people that be like, why the fuck would you walk out there to do that? But it's because they've never had that.
But it's
never had that feeling.
It's so difficult in that, like...
You can't explain that to somebody unless they've done it. They've purposely put themselves in position to do it.
And I think it's
or they've accidentally ran upon it and they realized that they enjoyed something like that.
I guess I accidentally did too.
And now you like it. And
do you think what was I saying before?
which part? Where you get out to a certain spot and
No. Hate when this happens. This happens to me all the time. Anyways,
the
keep
meditation, you were talking before about how might be my parents. 8:20. Mom said could be them. How long are we at?
Hour 25.
Damn. I don't really want to wrap this up, but we might have to continue this one.
That's all right.
Well, I'll do a close just in case.
It out.
Maybe we'll be back on, maybe not. If not, sorry it ended this way for you guys, but I enjoyed this one. I hope you guys got a lot out of this.
Ended with me not remembering what I wanted to say.
Perfect ending, typical
What
ending.
did I want to say?
Wait a second. Yep, we're back at it. You guys can follow us on Spotify, iTunes, wherever the heck you guys get your content. YouTube, we're on there. We're going to upload weekly. We got a couple other ones. If we do miss a week, we'll probably throw up a clip or whatever from some different ones. Maybe even work on some YouTube shorts, I think. Mm-hmm. That's becoming a nice thing, and that's monetized now too. So we'll do some YouTube shorts and
figure it out.
Yep, get you guys some content. Well, thank you for listening to us for the last hour and a half of apocalyptic bullshit and nootropics and stuff that we're interested in. Hopefully you guys are too.
Yeah.